May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea that Darrin Lopez was justified in killing, in executing Jamie Faith, it is as absurd and unbelievable as those fake emails. Even if you give him every benefit of the doubt, even if you believe what he told you from this witness stand, which much of it was untrue or misleading, even if you were to believe all of that, it still does not justify the murder of Jamie Faith. You have been given the law on defense of a third person. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this in voir dire. It has to be a reasonable belief. Yes, that means subjectively from the defendant's point of view, but it also means, and it's in here, the definition is in here, an ordinary and prudent person in the defendant's shoes. What did he reasonably believe? What would an ordinary and prudent person have reasonably believed in his shoes? What would an ordinary and prudent person have done? Would they not have tried to gather more information to get more answers about this supposed abuse that was going on? Absolutely. That is an ordinary and prudent person acting that way. But not him. He didn't seek any additional information. He just accepted the emails and the texts as he was receiving them. And as for the texts, we don't have them. So you just have to take his word for it that that's what was going on. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard about his mental health, about his PTSD. He has a mild TBI. He has some attention issues. And I'm certainly not going to diminish that he served his country and that he was injured doing so. That is true. But it does not excuse this behavior. In fact, to the contrary, he is more equipped than anyone else to conduct some reconnaissance. He told you he was trained by the ATF in reconnaissance. So why not go do a little reconnaissance of your own and figure out if this abuse is actually happening? He's trained in situational awareness, assessing threats, all of these things because he was special forces. So in fact, I think you can hold him to a higher standard than a reasonable person.
That's not the law, Your Honor. It's misstating the law and burdens and the higher standard that they're going to hold him to.
It's the defendant's subjective belief.
Right. Members of the jury, if the lawyers say anything in conflict with what's written on the jury charge, you go with what's written in the jury charge.
You can consider his training, his experience, all of those things when you think about what his subjective belief would be. All of that fell by the wayside when it came to getting Jamie Faith out of the way so that he could have Jennifer Faith. He did nothing to investigate. And let's talk about immediately necessary. It has to be immediate. That means now, right this moment, action is needed. Not in a few minutes, not in a few hours, not later today, not this weekend. Right now, a split-second decision. Fear of future danger is never enough. And certainly, when you have premeditated an execution, there is nothing immediate about it. He drove 650 miles halfway across the country, 10 hours to ambush Jamie Faith. What is immediate about that? Even when he got to Dallas, he sat in the vacant house next door for hours before he acted. There was nothing immediate, and there was nothing necessary. Necessary means you have to do this. You have no other options. This is your only choice. We are talking about the taking of a human life being justified. It is a high standard it has to be your only option. Ladies and gentlemen, Darrin Lopez had so many options that he did not take. He could have reached out to Jennifer's family. He could have tried to find her friends. He could have called American Airlines. These are all things he discusses. He considers them and then glosses right over them. He could have done the thing that every reasonable person would have done, which is call the police. He could have helped her just escape. He's special forces. Why don't you come on an escape mission? Not an execution. He had so many choices, and the only thing he did, he emailed Rob. That was how he handled this. I'll just email Rob, this guy I've never met. And when he doesn't do anything, I don't know. I guess I'll just skip all the other options and jump straight to murder. Absolutely not necessary. Nothing immediate and nothing necessary about it. And you will get that in the charge. You also will see in here, he can only use deadly force in response to deadly force or imminent harm. There was nothing imminent that was about to happen to Jennifer Faith. At most, he said, maybe Jamie would sometimes burn her on these walks. You don't get to kill someone because you think he might burn someone with a cigarette in a few minutes. That's absurd. And you will see in here the presumption. And if you read these provisions carefully, you will see it absolutely does not apply. I want you in particular to pay attention to the part about provoking the person. James Faith did nothing to provoke anyone in this situation. He was truly a completely innocent victim, walking along totally unsuspecting. That tells you that Darrin Lopez is not entitled to the presumption. There was nothing reasonable, immediate, or necessary about what he did. And again, ladies and gentlemen, that's assuming, that is assuming that you believe that he believed those emails. And they were absurd. You saw those pictures that he was receiving. They were clearly stills from pornographic movies. They were very explicit. Ladies and gentlemen, either you see those and you immediately know this is not real, or you see those and you immediately know I need to help somebody right this minute. You don't sit on it and wait 186 days. That's how long from the first time he heard about her abuse to the date he killed James Faith. 186 days went by that he did not act. He knew there was, even if you want to say, okay, maybe he didn't know for sure that they were fake, he knew there was something amiss. Any reasonable person would know that there was something off about those emails.
You use ignorance.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that because he sent that strangulation picture to himself. It's nowhere else on his phone, and you better believe if it had been emailed to him from that fake Jamie Faith account, he would not have deleted it. He didn't delete those emails. He sent it to himself, and you can go look at it. He sends it, there's a draft, he sends it to himself. He sends it to himself with a named file that's a series of numbers, and then when he sends it to Rob, he has retitled it, Choking. And he says to Rob, this is what he sent to me. Absolutely not. He was participating in it at that point. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more about how you know that they had agreed on this. And I want you to pay attention to these dates in particular. On August 21st, Jen Faith texts Tina and says, I cut ties with Darrin. And we know that's not true. We know that's not true because the next day they're talking. And these are just the calls that are left in the call log. There's probably more out there, but they're talking. August 22nd, Google Doc, concerns / things to be addressed / done, shared by Jennifer Faith. August 22nd. They continue talking. August 29th, she sends it back to him. Invitation to edit. Concerns, things to be addressed or done. What do you think is in that document that they made sure was deleted? They continue talking, apparently watching pornography together, more talking. And ladies and gentlemen, September 3rd, she deletes those fake email accounts. Why would she delete them on September 3rd? Because she knew she didn't need them anymore. They had reached their agreement. The execution plan was underway. And he tells you September, that month, they did exchange text messages where she's telling him, you gotta have a front license plate in Texas. This is what time my pool boy is here in the morning. And he said, don't worry, I'm just gonna take the freeways, maybe once through downtown. This was premeditated. 100% premeditated. And it was so that he could have her. It wasn't to protect her. It was to get Jamie Faith out of his way. You heard on that video with the gunshots being fired, we hear someone say, hey, right before the gunshots. We don't know if it was the defendant or Jamie Faith. It could have been Jamie Faith's last words. What we do know is that Jamie Faith, either he said hey or he heard him say hey, and he turned around and he saw what was about to happen to him. He saw a masked man running up on him, ambushing him in the street when he's walking his dog. He knew those moments were his last. We talked a lot about honor. The defendant talked a lot about honor. There was no honor in this. This was the most dishonorable thing that a man can do. The execution of an innocent person for personal gain. And he is guilty of murder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paver. Court will recognize the Honorable Cliff Duke on behalf of the defense. Sir, this is your jury. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Paver said something very clear that I want you to understand, that Darrin Lopez and Mr. Sanchez and myself, and I think all of us completely understand, is that Jamie Faith did absolutely nothing to provoke Darrin Lopez in any way, shape, or form. But this woman, his wife of over 15 years, created a monster out of the person that was Jamie Faith, that absolutely provoked and terrified Darrin Lopez to this point of action. And understand that it was absolutely no mistake. You heard from Keith Duncan when he took the time to call in yesterday and be able to tell you that when he found out about what had gone on, it was close enough that almost 30 years later, it concerned him enough to call the FBI and say, hey, you've got to know about this. That she's done this before. She's done it exactly like this before. And she's been doing it since the time that Darrin and Jennifer first had that ever important romance that has been central to his life for his entire life. His first love that he held on to through war, through torture, through injury, and through failures, and that then he reconnected with, and that she immediately began to take advantage of. We have an advantage here, ladies and gentlemen. We have an advantage of all of the communication that you get to take back, that you can walk through from March 17th, date by date, all the way up and through, and follow what went along. And the state's implication that Darrin had some idea that this was fake or that this was wrong is ridiculous. Ms. Paver told you during voir dire, you don't leave your common sense at the door. Look at the emails, look at the communications, look at his testimony and what he has been able to tell you consistently throughout this entire process. And I want to take a couple minutes and talk to you and show you exactly what happened. that the two of them did reconnect, that she was important enough to him and had been for so long that he felt like it was important, that he had been drafting a letter to her even before he found her again. But from the beginning, he's not looking to steal her away from her marriage or to break up the marriage or immediately get her back, but that she was important enough to seek out again and reconnect with and tell her what she had meant as he was going through his 18 and a half years and 6 deployments in Iraq. That he had no desire to break up that marriage. But immediately, the two of them do connect. Jennifer tells him about how her marriage is broken, about how she is unhappy. And the two of them start an almost immediate emotional affair, and understanding where Darrin has been holding on to her for 2 decades, and how exciting it must be that she is interested and excited and as willing to re-engage with him. And Jennifer's been practicing this for 30 years. And what's some of the first things that she's talking about? How important it was to her for when he held on to her. She knows how important she was to him. And starting to ask about his injuries and how those affected him. She admits to her friend even. The two of them are having a full-blown emotional affair. Now, we may not like people getting in between marriages. We may not like the fact that marriages break down and that relationships don't work on both sides. But that doesn't remove us from what then happens as Jennifer Faith begins to manipulate this entire situation. When she creates a fake email for her husband, when she's already been texting Darrin as her husband, saying, "I've got you and I'm punishing her for you two running around behind my back." The scary thing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that there's no evidence that's been admitted here at all that Jamie even knew that the two of them were ever communicating. That he was completely innocent in all of this. But Jennifer was portraying him as this monster as she started to ratchet things up. That she started to be emotionally abused by her husband. And then she began to start to become physically abused by her husband. And I'm sorry that I'm going to click through a few of these emails and make you look at them again. Because these are traumatic emails to folks like us, just looking at them with none of the connection. But it's important to remember, as Ms. Paver pointed out, from a subjective view, from Darrin's point of view, and from an objective view, in Darrin's shoes, what these were doing to him for the love of his life. When he's telling him about gang bang, triple penetration, that's what we'll be doing to her. Lining people up and the injuries that he had done to him. This is Jennifer turning her husband, James Faith, into a monster. Let's remember when this is. Society is shut down. We are on lockdown. Darrin has already been extremely removed from everybody, even before COVID. And this is what he is getting about the love of his life. I want to take a sidestep for just a minute and talk about the inconsistencies in these emails. And clearly Darrin knew that because he was emailing these things to himself, because he had already got these injury photos and then is still asking them from Jennifer. Well, take a look again, because the email that Darrin sends back to Jamie is, "P.S. I just got your email. Your sick birthday shit stops now." He hadn't got the injury photos. He was asking Jennifer, "I need one photo, one pic, give me something." And then he sees this email from Jamie after the fact when he's already sent that back. "I just got your email. This stops now." And the infamous choking picture. You heard it from Jordan Exman and also from their own technical expert who wasn't as forthcoming with it. But they said it's very plausible and very reasonable that when you get something on a text, you've got to put it somewhere. And like a 50-year-old man, he's going to save it in his email. And that's exactly what we have here. It's put into the cache at the exact same time that he saves it into his own email. There's nothing nefarious about this. This isn't that he had it for years. There's the implication that this somehow tells Darrin that this is all fake. Aha, I've got it. is ridiculous. That this is what they're pointing to, that he somehow should have known that Jennifer was manipulating him to this level, is beyond ridiculous. And then Darrin is still doing everything he can, as Jamie has had that birthday weekend, an important weekend. And look back at the dates in 2020. Look at the emails. This was all weekend leading up to Monday with the pictures. And Darrin's doing what he can at this point, right? He's trying to threaten Jamie through the emails. He's telling him, I am going to call the cops. I will have a domestic disturbance out there. And what do we hear then? That Jennifer automatically is getting back, no, I'm okay, it's okay, stop. Don't call the police, I don't want to get Amber involved. I'm going to deny everything. And what do we know at that point? If the police come out and Jennifer denies everything, and now Jamie knows that the police have been called, what's the ramp up at that level? Thank you, Judge. He's doing everything that he can, but Jennifer needs to pull him back. And so she creates Rob. So she's now impersonating two different individuals to give Darrin the way to get out and say, hey, look at what's going on. Get involved in this life. You know the two of them better. You can be involved and help step in. And things get better. We've got this spike in May, and then for the next 3 months, things get better. And again, we do see that the two of their relationship, Darrin is feeling better when they're talking and they're texting. They're building their relationship together, and things are not as bad as home because Rob has intervened and Jamie has been pulled back from the brink of this ridiculous, destructive, abusive action. And the two of them are having their emotional affair and their long distance relationship at this point, because it is more than just the emotional affair at this point. They are sexually engaged even though they are not together. That Darrin somehow is the one that is pushing this sadomasochistic evil stuff on Jennifer, even though that she's a rape victim. Read the letter again. We can see exactly where this is coming from. I'm finding out that you have an interest in Dom sub things. The way that I role play makes me a daddy Dom without even knowing it. Jennifer is introducing this thing that Darrin is interested in, and the love of his life, surprise, surprise, he is wanting to do exactly what she wants to be able to build that relationship more and more. She is the one introducing this. She is the one pushing the envelope. She is the one bringing Darrin into it. And even then, folks, it's insulting to victims of rape to compare a consensual BDSM relationship and gang rape. Those are two very different things. And the two of them are absolutely in love. And then things start getting worse again. He's cutting her hair. He's burning her with cigarettes. Jennifer is pushing on the accelerator back towards danger and threat and terrifying Darrin to the point that he's overreacting. 3 hours. I mean, good grief, I can go a couple of days sometimes without hearing somebody without panicking. But Darrin Lopez, 3 hours and he's emailing Rob freaking out. Is she okay? And then she pulls the only outlet line that he's got. Rob goes away. He has no other person to reach out to. Jennifer has shut down any ability for Darrin to be able to reach out and try to help from where he is isolated and scared and terrified for what's going on. And she pushes on the accelerator to the point that Darrin is tracking her every moment through the Las Vegas trip, terrified that she might just disappear, and at least I've got some Google data to tell the police where she was at the last time. And she's pushing on the accelerator as she is building up where she drowned by her husband in a hot tub to where he had to resuscitate her, and where he's going to do it again. Almost 6,000 texts between the two of them between October 1st and October 9th, pushing on the accelerator, scared of that anniversary date, scared of how things are building up, terrified of what Jamie is doing, leading up to a date certain, an anniversary weekend that's going to be special, where she is going to be drowned now not just on one man's penis, but on multiple, and see how long it takes her to come back. As Jennifer is pushing the envelope, creating this monster of her creation onto Darrin Lopez. And as you're thinking about all of this, you have to, number one, think about it from Darrin Lopez's perspective, the subjective perspective. And then number two, you have to look at it objectively of a reasonable person in his shoes as a damaged, broken, 100% disabled war veteran. Thinking about every failure in his life for the family of Jeff Frensley that died in 2008. When he failed to save his granddaughter Skylar in 2009. When he failed Don Garland, his Special Forces teammate who took his life in 2012. When he failed with his identity was taken away, ending his military career, the entirety of his life taken away because of a medical discharge. When he failed to stand up for his family and was beaten by a debt collector in 2014. As his marriage failed and his wife has moved on to somebody else. Darrin could not fail. Jennifer failed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duke. Mr. Sanchez, you have 17 minutes out of the 30 remaining. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll let you know when you have 2 minutes remaining for your request.
Okay, please, the court, counsel. Good morning. You've been here all week. I know it's been hard. It's been hard for all of us to sit here and listen to the evidence. You didn't have a choice to be here. You know, it wasn't an invitation to come to serve on jury duty. It was an order that you received in the mail, and you all showed up, and we thank you for that. But you did have a choice. You had a choice whether to tell the truth during jury selection and whether you paid attention. And every time I looked over, every single juror was paying attention and doing their job, and I thank you for that. We had to sit through tedious evidence, 3 hours almost of email rereadings, but I didn't see anybody looking away. You're all looking intently because I think you're taking your job serious. And this is the time now, where, as I say, where the rubber meets the road. We've done all our job now. We've presented to you everything that we can present to you under the law. So now it's going to be in your hands. You are the ones that are going to go in the back and decide. We can't be back there trying to argue anymore with you on this case. You're on your own now as 12 individuals deciding what you're going to believe or not believe and where you're going to decide in this case. It's going to be a decision based on your own individual and moral assessment, as we talked about during jury selection. I look at the 12 of you, you all look different. You all look different than me too. We all come from different places in life. We all had different experiences. We've all been raised a certain way. We have different moral compasses. So each of you cannot put that away when you're deciding what the case is. Okay? You can't get rid of that. That's part of your makeup. That's part of your gut that tells you what to do. So when you go back there, don't give that up. Don't give that up. And you vote how you think you should vote, not based on what somebody else thinks. Just briefly, I'm just going to cover these real quick. You know, your rights as a juror, you had a right to the whole truth. And I think you got most of it. I think you got most of it from the state. But you have a right to the whole truth, and you decide what you received, okay? But basically, what it comes down to is what happened here, okay? Just to respond briefly to what the state had just told you. They told you should hold Darrin to a higher standard because he was a special forces soldier, okay? That he knew how to collect intel. They want you to hold him to that standard when he first finished training and he first started to go to war. But in reality he wasn't that soldier anymore at that time. We know that for a fact. It's documented from the military. He wasn't the soldier that he was when he first served. As a matter of fact, the military told him, you're not good enough anymore to be a soldier. Guess what? You're disabled. We don't want you anymore. We can't have you serving the country anymore. We've used you as much as we needed to use you. And now the shell of yourself, you're going to have to go back to your little farm in Tennessee. And you know what? You're on your own now. You're going to cope with whatever trauma you went through by yourself. It's up to you whether you want to go get treated by a doctor. It's up to you whether you want to take your medication. So to hold him to the standard of a special forces soldier when he was first a soldier is unfair and absurd. If we're talking about absurdities, that's one right there. But who was Darrin Lopez now when he got back from the war and disabled due to his PTSD, which is very important, as the doctor told you earlier, because at that point, not only was he injured, not only was he emotionally vulnerable, but his sense of danger was affected because of it. Because of his service to this country, now he viewed danger differently. Because again, you have to look at it through his eyes. You have to put yourself in his position and how he viewed things. And where did all this start? Where did this case start? Remember at the beginning when I told you, you know what, yes, Jennifer's not sitting in this courtroom. She's not on trial, but her acts are intertwined so much that she is on trial and what she did. The only way the state can get around that is by trying to say, well, Darrin must have known. He had to know that these emails were fake. That's the only way they're going to get around it. Because if you believe what Darrin believed, that those were actual emails that he was receiving in his state of mind at that time, then you know that she led him to do what he did. And this all started, just like my co-counsel said, in high school. He loved her. One of the most special memories that he had was that he went to Europe on this trip, kissed her on the Eiffel Tower, walked through the Black Forest, sat in the rain on a bench. These memories were so important to him that he held on to them. Even when he first entered the military, he put them on a card. So if he was ever captured and tortured, he could use those memories to get through that traumatic event. They dated, they broke up. He went off to work a little bit at Jack in the Box, but eventually he went to the horrors of war, fighting terrorists. And because of that, he started to go through traumatic events, as you heard. The major one being he got blown up next to a truck full of nitrate that caused him to have a traumatic brain injury. Now they're trying to say it's mild. Guess what? I don't think anybody wants to have even a mild traumatic injury, okay? He had a brain injury. And it also, the trauma kept going through his service. He suffered more traumatic events. And then even after he got out, he suffered more trauma, which contributed even to him still having that condition at the time he reconnected with Jennifer. And so is it any surprise that he was overjoyed and giddy, I would say, that he was finally able to find her and contact her, and that she actually wrote back, and that she actually reciprocated his love for her. And guess what? That was the biggest mistake he's made in his life, reconnecting with her. Because what do we know about Jennifer Faye? She's not a good person. She's manipulative. She's deceitful. She lies to everyone. She uses anybody the way she wants to. You heard from her prior boyfriend how she's been doing this since high school. And we heard Detective Barnes tell you that there was another individual that the investigation revealed that she had done similar things to.
Objection, misstatement of the facts, Your Honor.
The jury will recall the facts as you recall them.
When I asked the question, I said, didn't your investigation reveal there was at least 2 other individuals that she had done this to in the past? And he said, yes. So they reconnect, they start talking, but we also know again that Jennifer will use anybody to her to get what she wants. We know that. Just as Anne-Marie Wilson told you, one of the first witnesses, the gentleman who came up to help when the shooting happened. At the very end of his testimony, he says, she used everyone. even him. She was even trying to get him to try to say that maybe the person who committed this might have been black. And that's what even caused him to maybe not even talk to her anymore. Okay? She used the police, lied to them. Even when they were sitting down trying to comfort her and praying with her, she was deceiving them the whole time. She lied to Jamie. She even used her daughter, Amber, as an excuse not to involve the police. And especially, she lied to Darrin. Now, this argument that Darrin knew those were fake emails, if they're going to use the word absurd, that's the most absurd argument you're going to hear today. And the way you know it's absurd is because Detective Barnes told you from the stand that Darrin was duped. Detective Barnes, one of the main investigators on this case, ATF liaison, told you that he was manipulated. He didn't hedge. He told you that right to your face. So why would Detective Barnes have that opinion? Why would he tell you, one of the lead investigators who knows more about this case than anybody, why would he say that to you if that wasn't true? And because it's true, that means he was manipulated. He was duped. And when someone's duped, that means they didn't know what they were reading was not real. She created all the information in this case, created the whole world, created the monster, and then set Darrin, the disabled soldier, to do her bidding. I usually don't make notes for closing arguments, but I think this is just a very important case, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But again, she took advantage of Darrin's love for her. She took advantage of Darrin's commitment to her, his memory of her, and used it. And where you see the biggest manipulation of all is after the killing. But before that, she, as my co-counsel said, I'm not going to go over everything he actually said because he did a good job doing that, but you could see the arc of the danger that she used in this case, and that she manipulated, and that she lied about. She meets him, she asks about his traumatic brain injury, she even asked to see his records, and she starts using it to her advantage. She even told him, and you'll see in one of the emails, that she had some certification in brain injury. So she knew what she was doing. She knew which buttons to push, and she knew the condition that Darrin was in. Now, we're not saying he's intellectually disabled, but he suffered from a condition that caused him to believe that harm might be coming more than most people, which tells you why he acted the way he did. So she ramps him up with that date. Before, she was just talking about abuse. She thought he was going to call the police, and Rob gets introduced, the fake Rob. Rob is a real person. He really was a coworker of hers, but not the Rob in the email. She totally made that up. So she's controlling all the information and how Darrin receives it. He's getting emails from the fake Jamie, emails from the fake Rob. He's receiving information that way. He's getting text messages, but through her phone, because she had to control it to be through her phone because she didn't want him calling another number. So she makes it where he's texting through her phone, and that is important because that's how Darrin and her eventually, or it was actually Darrin who said, you know what, let's use this code so that way I know if it's really you calling me. That was his idea, Darrin's, because he wanted to make sure it was her. Okay? So she's controlling the emails, she's controlling the text messages, and she's controlling herself talking on the phone. She's also controlling when Darrin should get rid of emails or get rid of text messages. Okay. And we know he was not deleting emails in November to try to cover something up. Because as you've seen, most of the information we got in this case was from Darrin, who didn't get rid of a lot of stuff. From his computer, his email account, his phone. She was smart. She got rid of not only her text messages, except for the ones she overlooked to Tina. Not only that, she got rid of her phone. Darrin didn't get rid of his phone. She got rid of her phone, came in with a brand new phone. So as she's controlling this information and controlling him from going to the police, and again, they're making it sound like that's some kind of absurd thing. He was committed to her. She had lied to him, and she had told him it's going to get worse, and he believed it, and he was going to do anything she asked. He even told you from the stand. He was so committed to her and in love with her, he was going to do whatever she asked, including protect her. So we start after the Vegas trip. She starts again push. She's decided, I think I need to get rid of my husband. I'm sure that's what she thought. The evidence would show that. So what does she start to do? She says, it's time to get rid of him, and I'm going to start telling Darrin that it's getting worse. And just by the way, another on the side, the way you know that Darrin didn't know that was a fake email account from Jamie is because she casually slides it into a forwarded email about a diet plan. If that was some kind of role play or some kind of fantasy play, like, why would you do that? The only purpose of that would be to make it look like that was a real email. But we get back to September. She starts ramping up the allegations of abuse, telling him it's real. And as you heard, Darrin believed that it was anguishing him. He was going through another trauma too. Not only the traumas that he already had gone through that made him vulnerable to manipulation before, he told you how she would call him late at night, and also on top of the emails, tell him what happened and how she felt, where he couldn't sleep. He was going crazy.
You used 28 of your 30 minutes.
Thank you. And so Darrin, he thought it was an immediate danger because he jumps in his car and he drives straight to Dallas to save her. Straight to Dallas, stopping to put gas in the car only. He gets to South Dallas, he's lost. He knows once he turns on his iPad that he's leaving a breadcrumb, but it didn't matter to him because he wasn't going to lose another person. He gathered himself there and he thought about all the past trauma he's had, all the people he lost, and he wasn't going to let Jennifer be lost without him being able to do something. So he goes, and the first instant that he can safely save her, he does. He acted immediately to the danger that he perceived and that Jennifer created. If you put yourself in Darrin's position, it's reasonable to believe that he really felt he had to act at that point. I think you don't even have to be in Darrin's position. A lot of people in his position, if they were led to believe by the deceit of Jennifer Faith, would believe that. And he acted. And he killed him. And then when he found out that he was totally innocent, it devastated him. But it took him a long time. It took him a long time. Even after being confronted with Jennifer's deceit, he still didn't want to believe it. And he finally did. And when he finally did, he cooperated with law enforcement. And even, and if you look at Jennifer's direction and manipulation in this case, it really comes to light after the killing, because she's the one directing the cover. She's the one telling him, "Hey, you need to get rid of these text messages." She's telling him this. She's the one saying, "Hey, that sticker, you might want to get rid of that. Go take it off." He hadn't even done that. He hadn't even thought about that. She's the one that told him, "Take the sticker off." And then in her very last attempt to deceive Darrin and get him to cover up for her, she sends him this Defendant's Exhibit Number 2, a letter on October 19th of 2021, where she says, 575. Just a quick note to say, I never lied to you, and I have never sent you emails from any account but mine as me. If Darrin knew that those were fake emails, why is she sending a letter to him in jail telling him that they were not fake emails? Why send a letter like this if he knew that? Because he didn't. And she was trying to cover for herself. Because she already had used Darrin for her purpose. And now she was trying to get Darrin to cover up for her. This is very vital because this undercuts their whole argument that he knew that those were fake emails. think you all are reasonable people. I think you all can go in the back and make a reasonable decision based on the evidence that you heard. And we're asking you to do the right thing under the law. That's what we're asking you to do. I think we can sum up this whole case by the last words of some of the witnesses that you heard. You heard her old boyfriend from high school tell you that she had done this before and she did it again. And that's exactly what happened here. You heard Mr. Emery Wilson tell you that she used everybody, and she did. Darrin may have pulled the trigger, but she pulled down. And as Dr. Fabian told you at the end of his testimony, but for Jennifer, this would have never happened. I think you have all the evidence in front of you to tell you that deep in your heart and deep in your gut for you to make the proper decision in this case. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Court will recognize the Honorable Brandy Mitchell. Ma'am, you have 16 minutes. You may
Thank
proceed
you.
whenever you're ready.
May it please the court, counsel, co-counsel. Anguish, Darrin's anguish. Heck, those two talked all the time. They communicated all through the night. They didn't stop talking since March 17th. They couldn't keep away from each other. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to kill a man, if you're going to end his life, if you're going to choose the time and the place where his life ends, like Darrin did, then you better have a damn good reason. That's basic human moral conduct. And it better not be based on absurd emails. Subject line, get Jen home now, all caps. It better not be based on two grown men arguing via email. Interestingly, these emails on after September 3rd, when Rob Schmidt's email was deleted, Darrin never emails that again. Never. There's not one email. Nothing.
You don't have to object. There was an email where he was wondering why the email had been deleted.
Members of the jury, you'll recall the testimony.
You better have a damn good reason, and it better not be based on some text conveniently deleted where a man tells another man the who, what, why, when, and where of the murder of his wife. That a man who works for American Airlines in IT is going to email and text this. You better have a good reason. Legally, it must, and this makes sense, it must be immediately necessary. And nothing about what those two did, nothing about what was going on, as Ms. Paver said, was immediately necessary. I'm sure, it's a good thing, I guess, that James Faith and Jennifer Faith, or James Faith, wants to keep up the routine of walking his dog before the murder of his wife later on, before an underwater blowjob drowning. That was convenient for Darrin. These two both cooked it up. Both. And he ran up to him and he executed him. An unarmed man. Nothing about that situation was immediately necessary. Everything that you guys have heard, these two cooked it up, and we know it. And there is no legal defense here. There is not one legal defense that applies in this case. There are lies, and there are stories, and there's strange sex and strange love, but there's no defense. There is but one victim here. One victim. James Faith. PTSD, a concussion. People have those all the time. They don't go out and commit murder. They don't show up based on some absurd communications and then tell you, oops, I deleted all that. But that was my justification for killing a man. Gone. Ladies and gentlemen, that man lost his life within seconds. Dead on the street. This good man. Jennifer Faith is responsible, and Darrin Lopez is responsible. And we are asking you to find him guilty, because he is guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Members of the jury, the next thing that's going to happen is that you all are going to go to the jury room to begin your deliberations. As the instructions tell you, you need to elect a foreperson and then you'll begin your deliberations. All of the evidence will be sent back with you. A couple things. I'm going to sort of preempt some things based on experiences that I've had in the past. Some juries will go back and they'll send a question back to me saying, can we have a transcript of the trial? It does not work like that. The law forbids a general rereading of testimony. You all can articulate for me in writing if you have a specific disagreement about testimony, and I'll give you an example. Judge, we would like to have Brandon's testimony read back. Can't have that. Judge, 6 of us think that Brandon said the light was red. 6 of us think that Brandon said the light was green. Can you please go back and find that particular testimony, and we can begin looking. And as soon as we can get it, we'll give it to you. However, it's not instant. There's a process that must be followed. I only tell you that because I want you to understand that we'll be working as hard as we can, but it's not instantaneous. Other than that, I'm going to have some additional instructions for the alternate jurors. You are alternate jurors. We'll have accommodations for you in the back that is separate from the jurors in this case. You need to be there. If you need to take a restroom break or anything like that, you need to make sure that Sheriff Martin knows how to get a hold of you in case something happens and we need you immediately. Please wear your juror badges, and that goes for everybody in case you all do take breaks. And if anybody approaches you, and this goes for anybody, that makes you feel uncomfortable around here while you're on a break or taking a break, please let the bailiff know. We are now working on your schedule. If you want to go back and deliberate now, you can. If you want to go back and take a break, we can do that too. We'll be working on your schedule from here on out. The only thing I ask is that you keep us apprised of what your schedule will be by sharing that with Sheriff Martin. All rise for the jury. Court's in recess pending the jury's verdict.